Welcome to episode 1 of Cars with Kasey. Today we will be going over what would happen if Pontiac returned for 2026. The year is 2009. GM is not doing well and has been forced to file for bankruptcy, but is being bailed out by the United States government. As part of this deal, GM was forced to discontinue or sell off their bottom 4 brands. At the time, this was Hummer, Saab, Pontiac, and Saturn. Both Hummer and Saturn failed to sell, although Saab was successfully sold to Spiker Motors. However, Pontiac was discontinued by GM to prevent the tarnishment of the iconic American brand. Nearly 16 years later, Pontiac has not returned. However, Hummer has returned in EV form under the GMC brand. The return of one old GM brand gives hope for the return of another, in this case, that being Pontiac. To add fuel to this fire, GM has recently renewed ownership over the Pontiac nameplate for automotive use. This offers hope that GM might revive the Pontiac brand for what would be Pontiac's 100th anniversary after being founded in 1926 by the Oakland brand. The purpose of today's episode is to discuss what I would do if I was in charge of the revival of Pontiac for 2026. Thus, I will be giving Pontiac a 5-model lineup for 2026 based on already existing GM models. The first of these models will be the Pontiac Fiero. The Fiero was initially conceived in the early 1980s as a sporty but economical car. The car was slow and only had 2 seats, but it had the gimmick of having the engine in the back and still coming with a manual transmission. This maintained the car's economics and sportiness, while the engine was transversely mounted in the back. The new Fiero for 2026 would have a very similar philosophy, taking parts from other GM cars and maintaining economics while still being an exciting car to drive. This time around, the new Fiero would likely share many parts with the Chevy Trax. The Fiero would similarly use the same 1.2-liter inline-3 engine from the Chevy Trax, producing 137 horsepower. To save costs, most interior features will also be taken from the Chevy Trax. The car would also use the same 6-speed automatic from the Chevy Trax. Due to its smaller size and younger target audience, the Pontiac Fiero would likely have a lower price, more comparable to a Nissan Versa than to a Chevy Trax. As such, while the Chevy Trax attracts young buyers that are looking for a practical car, the Pontiac Fiero will attract young buyers that are looking for an exciting car. Unlike the original Fiero, the new Fiero will be rear-engined instead of mid-engined. This will allow the car to have more storage space in the car behind the seats. If a buyer favors more seats rather than just the storage, then there will be an option for a Super Coupe, which adds 2 more doors, much like a Super Cab on older trucks. The Super Coupe option will also extend the car by about 5 inches to make room for these new seats. The revival of the Pontiac Fiero will also give Chevrolet the opportunity to revive the Chevrolet Corvair. If the Super Coupe option isn't enough, then buyers can look to the second model in the new Pontiac lineup. The second model in the new Pontiac lineup will be the Tempest sedan. It will be built on the GM VSS-R platform, which will underpin cars like the Cadillac CT5. However, the Pontiac Tempest will come across as more of a sportier version of the Chevy Malibu and in rear-wheel drive configuration. Again, the Tempest would share parts with many other GM models, and would share many drivetrain components with the Cadillac CT5. The Tempest would compete with cars such as the Kia K5. Unlike the original Tempest, the new Tempest will only be offered as a sedan. This will help streamline production to keep costs low. And since the Cadillac CT5 that it is related to already has a super-powered version called the Blackwing, the revival of a true Pontiac GTO is within bounds. The Tempest would bridge the gap between the Fiero and the third Pontiac model, that being the Pontiac Catalina wagon. The Catalina would likely be very similar to the Tempest, but as mentioned, would be a station wagon rather than a sedan. The Catalina would also have a greater focus on family use. For city drivers, the Pontiac Vibe would be making a comeback, this time likely close to the Chevy Equinox. The Vibe would be a low-cost, electric rear-wheel drive hatchback designed for city driving and efficiency. Despite being close to the Equinox, the Vibe would be targeted more to buyers who seek an exciting car. As an alternative concept, the Pontiac Vibe would take full advantage of GM's recent collaboration with Hyundai and would expand the deal, and likely the Pontiac Vibe would end up being a reskinned Kia Niro. The Vibe would then have a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and EV option, although all of them would be front-wheel drive. But there is no bringing back Pontiac without the most exciting car of all. The one and only Pontiac Firebird would be coming back for 2026. Production will be streamlined to undercut the price of its rival, the Ford Mustang. The car will exclusively come with a V8 likely shared from the Chevy Silverado, and only come with a 6-speed manual. While the Corvette uses powerful V8s, the Firebird will use the V8 from a truck. This will give it a heavy torque bias and drive like a proper muscle car. Unlike the Mustang, which has returned to coupe formation, the Pontiac Firebird will return in shooting brake formation and be a 3-door liftback coupe. This will make the Pontiac Firebird more reminiscent of the last Firebirds in 2002 rather than just a copy of the Ford Mustang. While the new Firebird would not feature pop-up headlights like the classic ones, the new Firebird would feature hideaway lights. And like the original Firebirds, a Corvette-powered Firebird would be within reason. This could mean that a Firebird for 2026 could have a high-level trim option that would be powered by the GM LT7 engine that powers the Corvette ZR1. This would allow the Firebird to compete at a variety of price ranges like its Mustang rival. A cosmetic package will also be available in the United States, replacing the exhaust tips with eagle heads and giving the Firebird a shaker hood that also looks like the head of an eagle. This package will also give the Firebird a unique red, white, and blue decal pattern across the car. Across all 5 models, only 2 colors will be regularly available, those being white and red. However, a blue color option can be purchased by Pontiac employees and U.S. military veterans. An additional option for veterans would be to remove Pontiac badging and replace it with the badge of their military branch. To keep up with foreign competition, Pontiac will offer a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty as standard. Across all models, Pontiac will maintain a design language very similar to Pontiac in the 1960s. Pontiac's primary customer area would be the United States, although sales in Canada, Mexico, and Europe would also be possible. All in all, Pontiac will have shaken up foreign competition and revitalized American competition. The return of Pontiac could also catalyze a second golden age of American muscle. And that will do it for today's episode of Cars with Kasey. Cars with Kasey will air on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. I can be found on Instagram and YouTube. That's Tavling Appa, Tavling Tavling, Appa, APA. I have videos on YouTube, and I also run a car of the day on Instagram. Be sure to have a great day.